Welcome to Best Boys, a film podcast, an amateur film study podcast for the average Joe, the buffest buffs, and the cringest bingers. I'm your host, JP, and I'm joined by my brother, professional Hollywood old man,
Corey with a story, and this time I'm actually in Hollywood, so this makes the title a little bit more fun.
Oh yeah, what are you working on?
I am working on a music video that I'm directing for a artist from Denmark, and yesterday was our first shoot day, and it went surprisingly really well. I was pissing my pants every day up into this. It's first like bigger thing I've directed in a while. Though coming out of the retirement, so to speak. But today's our big day. As soon as I get off of here, we head down to downtown LA and hit up the soundstage and just start hopefully getting all of our shots because we have way too much to get done.
Oh, well, that sounds interesting. Well, good luck with that. We do have some movies to talk about today for this episode. So I thought that it was funny that I was like, oh, we should do an animated episode just to like lighten things up, kind of, make things easy on us. No heavy shit, no whatever. See some family films. But one of these films in particular kind of wrecks your soul right off the bat on an unbelievable level. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, so it wasn't exactly a walk at the park. But I wanted to pick two of the ones that people say are like the best Pixar films. And I want to stay within Pixar. And so actually when I realized when I chose these is that they are within a couple of years of each other. They're actually
2 years.
There's just WALL-E in between them. So Ratatouille came out in 2008. Up came out in 2009. Looks like they have the same composer of the score, but they have different directors, it looks like. But I'm not like familiar with the inner workings or like the nuts and bolts of how Disney Pixar shit operates, but it has kind of become an institution and kind of taken the torch from the 2D, the big 2D animation studios of the 90s and previous. I kind of been reticent I've always liked it, even since Toy Story and whatnot. I've always liked the style, but I've always missed it's kind of replaced 2D animation in theaters on the big in the Hollywood realm. And so I've always kind of had a weird animosity with that. And I think I kind of grew. I was at like high school age around the time when Ratatouille came out. I think Cars. I'm just looking here. I've seen all of them up through Cars, and then it's funny that Ratatouille is when I stopped watching kids movies as much. So I think I saw WALL-E because Mom and Dad saw it, but I didn't see Ratatouille. I didn't see Up. I don't remember if I saw the third Toy Story or not. I think I may have through osmosis. But from there is when I am much more spotty. And it's just kind of like, when you grow up a bit and you kind of fall away from family movies and kid movies. And you kind of think that, oh, those are just for kids, and some of them aren't, they're not great movies. They're just kid movies. And then we know that isn't true, that there are some of the greatest movies of all time are, family focused, I would say, Spielberg stuff, and maybe he's got a little bit more edge than Disney, but it's definitely family kind of adventure films. I don't know. What do you feel about Pixar?
Pixar was always one of those studios where it's like, if you knew it was Pixar instead of Disney, being like a Disney movie, because there's also like Disney's 3D movies.
Like what?
Like Frozen's not Pixar, but it's Disney, but it's 3D
Really?
animation.
I did not
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, there's a difference. Not every animated movie is Pixar.
I think that's more of a recent thing, though. I don't think that was the way it was for a while.
I want to say it started in the 2010s.
I guess Frozen
But
is 2013.
yeah. And so there's that disconnect. But if you knew it was actual Pixar, then it was like, oh, all right, I know it's going to be a great movie. And I'm looking at this list while you're talking too, and I there's a bunch I skipped in post Cars era. Like I skipped Ratatouille. That was the first time I'd watched it. Was for this. I'd seen Up and Wally, but then I didn't see Toy Story 3 until years later, or Cars 2. I still never saw, or Brave, but I did see Monsters University. But everything after Monster University, I have not seen.
Yeah, I honestly, it took me a while. I remember that Monsters Inc. I watched like I didn't resonate like have that like connection to it that other people did. I was like
Mhm.
already when I was starting to break away. I think. Um, and when I think about, so I think the reason why I picked these two movies is they are very lauded online as like two of the best Pixar films. But I come to realize that is probably because there's a lot of younger millennials and now Gen Z online, and they have it's like their Lion King, like
Mhm.
like what Lion King was for my age of millennial. I feel like that is the biggest fucking Disney movie of my life. But now I think people have this big reverence for these two films as like the best of the bunch, and I think some of it might maybe nostalgia, like particular to how old they were. But also that's why I wanted to see these because I never seen them, so I wanted to see them with my adult eyes. But keeping in mind that people online say that these are some of the best. I
Mhm.
actually did pull up the Disney CG films, and yeah, there's a bunch. I didn't realize it, so that kind of really fills it out with because like DreamWorks as well. There's a bunch, and then you got
Mhm.
randos out there, but like none of these are really other than Frozen. I don't feel like any of these are like Moana. Moana was a big hit, but I
Yeah.
didn't think like Ralph was a Wreck It Ralph was that big of a hit, but maybe it was.
Oh, I thought that was DreamWorks for some reason.
I just pulled up Disney CG. I just pulled up a random list at Disney
Yeah.
Animation Studios, and it has Wreck It Ralph, and it does have a Disney in the corner.
Oh, wow.
Big Hero 6, Zootopia, Frozen,
Zootopia was big,
and Tangled. Zootopia wasn't that big. It has like
but
a
not as big as
It
many of
has like
these. But
a cult following, but I don't think it's nearly as big as Moana or Frozen. Big
yeah,
Hero
Frozen's
6
definitely the
also
biggest.
was not that big.
Yeah.
Um, but still okay. So there's like a handful extra. I mean, if you want to lump them in for the comparison, well, that's whatever. They probably just put a separate studio together to just pump out these things faster. Is just what my as Disney's become this like content creation juggernaut, and just especially and it's kind of matured through the 2010s.
Hmm.
That makes sense to me. But all right, we're digressing here. So I figure we should start with Ratatouille since it is first. Honestly, if I would have known these were so close together, maybe I would have picked something different. Like I said, I explained why I picked these. I've actually, my partner has been making me watch, not making me, but we have been, take turns picking movies sometimes, and she's been picking. We occasionally pick an animated film. So actually, in the last year, I've seen Soul, I've seen Onward. Um, I've seen a few other things. Inside Out, which was cool. Inside Out is also Pete Doctor, which makes sense because Inside Out it also has some existential shit in it, like Up does.
Mm.
So, did you like Up Dog?
Did I like Up Dog? What's Up Dog?
Yeah, you got you gotcha.
Um,
I should have saved the joke for later, but we've been watching What We Do in the Shadows, the movie, which I don't believe we did on the podcast.
mm-mm.
But man, is that we watched the movie, which is funny, but the show is even funnier. If you like Matt Berry, we are big Matt Berry fans, so that's what got us in. But boy, oh boy, is it funny! And the one character named Colin Robinson, he's always doing terrible, corny jokes, and he does Up Dog constantly. It's so so cringe.
It's a classic.
Classic. Yeah, yeah. He's what's called an energy vampire. He's not a regular vampire. He just sucks your energy through awkwardness. Um, so funny, fucking so funny. All right. Well, let's talk about these movies. I feel like we've introed enough. So Ratatouille. I actually watched these movies in reverse order. I think that we saw that Up was shorter, so we started with Up. But Ratatouille does come first, so I think we should talk about that. I don't know. Do you wanna give us a your opening for the Rat?
Yeah. I'd never seen Ratatouille until this point. It was my first time, and it is very good. It is very adorable and fun, and I it doesn't have too much for me like heartstrings pulling moments, but at the same time, like I just thought everything was just like kind of fun and silly, and it kept the pace of the movie going. Um, I understand, like back whenever this came out, a lot of people love it. My girlfriend, this is one of her favorite Pixar movies, and when I would just see the trailers or whatever, I just didn't really care. But now I get it. This is it's definitely up there with one of the best for sure because it is surprisingly fun. I love all the characters. I love how silly everyone's names are. Um, and just like the whole attention to detail with like the cooking and stuff, I thought was very interesting on this.
Yeah, and and at the time, I mean, I think I'm more familiar with some of these terms just because of like watching other cooking media since then, like the anime Food Wars or like
I've seen
obviously
some of Food Wars.
yeah reality shows or whatever. But yeah, I think it was pretty. It's like trying to be authentic and immersive into that world, but still having it's like kind of like stylized kind of stereotype I don't know what the right word is. I'm losing it, but like a kind of like stereotypical Paris,
Hmm.
stylized Paris, and it's all food and whatnot. And I don't know. I think that this movie is like the perfect. It's just like a fun, not perfect, but it's a fun. It's not heavy. It's not like deep, but it executes everything really well, and everything. It's just funny and it's fun and it's engaging and it's interesting, and the premise is like ridiculous, and I think that's, but it works at the same time, and then like you just you care about you start to care about the characters. I think it's interesting that the main character is the mouse, but it's like the human is like kind of like the second fiddle to the mouse, which is it's
Hmm.
like an interesting dynamic that the screen time that they share of like whose story is taking prominence, because it's ultimately like this movie is very much about this Gusteau guy,
Hmm.
this Gusteau chef. I don't know. It's really fun, and it's like there's not a whole lot to think about at the end of the day. But I think that that's kind of what it's doing is just turn your brain off and enjoy this fun story,
Hmm.
and it just works because some of it feels like old and tropey, like a story that you've heard before. But then it
Hmm.
kind of like with the long lost son came to claim his inheritance, and he's kind
Hmm.
of like the somebody's trying to like hide the fact that he should be inheriting the restaurant or the family business. And like I feel like that story's been told before, but they kind of take a little left and right turns when you think that it's like, oh, this is where it's headed, like he's
Hmm.
gonna, or like, oh, and I always thought about with there's movies where like character like slacker character meet somebody or find some way to become like great at something, and then they like their profile raises, they become this star, and then once the world finds out about their thing, they lose everything and they got to learn how to do it themselves. And like I thought that's where the movie was going to go this whole time,
Yeah.
like because I've seen that story that in so many millions of times, and it
Hmm.
starts that way, and then it kind of ends up like, no, it's about Remy. It's not about Linguini. Like that's Linguini's story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's about Linguini learning to be a fucking grown man. And it is a little bit about that, but be an adult and be a capable person and find what he's good at and
Hmm.
whatever. Um, but it's about Remy, and that's like Gusteau's ghost has come to Remy. It's not come to his own long lost son to save his business. He's come to this rat. And like, there's a big theme about anyone can cook, and I really do. I think that is true. Like, anyone can cook, and cooking is a really fun, enjoyable experience. And I think
Hmm.
for when I was in my 20s, I just wanted to eat things as fast as possible so I could move on with the things I wanted to do. But there's a for health reasons and for taste. It's just there's a lot to love about cooking and the process of it and whatnot. Um, and yeah, I think it kind of probably inspired many a young chef out there maybe that like anyone can do it. Um, yeah, I feel really good about it. I don't know if we want to move on to talking about the cast before we get too deep into the nuts and bolts of the plot. But it's a pretty. There's like people that have small roles, and I was like, oh wow, that's somebody. The Patton Oswalt, and I think this is kind of like Patton Oswalt's biggest fucking thing he's ever done. I feel like
Really?
yeah. What else would be bigger? This movie is big.
I don't know. I feel like I see him in like everything,
Well, yeah,
or at least his
he
voice.
does a lot of stuff, but he doesn't do a lot of stuff where he's the lead of a major film.
That's true.
Can you think of him as the lead of a major film? He's more of like a character actor, or
Yeah,
a
that's true.
TV actor, a comedian, a talking head, podcast guest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm looking through his filmography, and yet nothing that he's a lead in stands out at all.
Even TV
Uh,
shows, he's rarely a lead.
yeah,
So this is and this is great, and I think it lifted his profile a lot at the time, and he's kind of um,
he's a
like
great voice. Because
yeah, he's on things like the freaking Mystery Science Theater reboot and whatnot. Like, um, I don't know. Yeah, he does have a very iconic voice. I remember when he used to do voices on like Aqua Teen Hunger Force and things
yeah,
like that. He's got a very iconic voice and it very much works. So Linguini is played by just an animator. There's a couple characters in this film. They're not played by I think traditional voice actors. You know what? This guy Lou Romano who plays Linguini, I guess, voiced somebody in The Incredibles. Bernie Crop in The Incredibles, and he like small part in Cars. But then I think that maybe he just auditioned for it, and they're like, "You'll be cheaper than paying an actor."
yeah.
So and like it's not because honestly, Linguini doesn't talk that much. He's kind of just like squealing and making noises. uh, you know who it
It's plus
thought
stumbling and stuttering.
yeah, I thought that it could have been. I thought it was the guy from Silicon Valley. What the fuck is his name?
Middleditch, Thomas
Yeah, I
Middleditch.
thought it was Thomas Middleditch, who would literally just sub right in for this.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
He looks like Thomas Middleditch.
yeah, the
But
exact same like stumbly delivery, shaky nervousness with everything.
yes, yeah, it would have worked pretty well. But I think it was probably before its time. He probably was a lot younger in 2007. But
You know what this guy was in? Lou Romano.
who? What
This is a cut. Monkey Bone.
was he? Did he have a
He's
bigger part?
no, it said he was the cop slash psychiatrist.
Okay, so
Uh,
okay. Yeah, so not an
I haven't
actor,
seen
and
that
apparently
movie.
the brother of Remy is also an animator for like mainly an animator.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Well, that's cool. They're giving these guys a chance to step out of their medium of choice.
and then all so other than that, we have Brad Garrett plays Chef Gusteau, who is like I always think of him as the Ray Romano's brother from Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
He's got a very iconic voice. Ian Holm plays Chef Skinner, which I could not believe the voice did not match to me at all because the accent he was doing. Ian Holm, from Alien and The Fifth Element.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Brian Dennehy, who is a alumni of the Best Boys podcast, best known as the sheriff from First Blood Rambo. He played Remy's father, Django. And then Peter O'Toole was the critic, Anton Ego. Peter Peter O'Toole, Brian Dennehy, and Ian Holm have all passed since this movie has come out. I guess I was kind of thinking about that because there is a lot of older actors in both of these movies, and all of them have passed since these movies have came out. And Up, I keep talking about Up already, but it very much deals with getting old and whatnot. I just thought that was interesting. Um, and
Yeah, that kind of
Janine,
really goes into that theme.
Janine Garofalo plays Chef Colette Tateau, and Will Arnett, who has a small part in this movie, is the sous chef, the German sous chef Horst. Um, so yeah, this also James Remar has a small role. Apparently, is work
He was
somewhere in there. And John
Garda and
Ratzenberger,
Mine
apparently I've read, is because I noticed John Ratzenberger had a small line in Up and never came back. And apparently he does cameos in like almost every Pixar film.
Yeah,
And
he's the pig. He's the pig in Toy Story.
yeah, he's a pig in Toy Story, which is his voice is iconic.
Hmm.
So when that's what steps out to me, it stands out to me. Um,
Is he still
so
alive?
yeah, I believe so because he was just in something recently that I was surprised he voiced in.
Wow, he's 75.
Yeah, he's 75. He's got some time. Um, so what? So I don't know. What do we want to touch on and exactly with this? Real quick, I do want to say that the animation for 2007 looks very good. Both of these
Yeah,
films for their time are animated really well. Up has a really cool style, but yeah, Ratatouille. If you look at this versus stuff, before that, obviously Toy Story, the first couple Toy Stories, it's like night and day. And I think that's
it,
something that is about the CG style is that it ages pretty well, even when it's not as good. It's like they still kind of stylize it in a way. Some CG like non-Pixar CG looks good. Does not look good like that Seth Rogen movie with the food that fucks.
oh god, the hot dog
That's
thing.
some of the worst. That's some of the worst
Yeah.
CG animation I've ever seen. 3D animation.
I mean, it's we're doing an R-rated animation thing, so
It
we
was
can't
not a big
imagine the
budget.
return's going to be good. But yeah, going to what you were saying though, like I feel like Wally was the first one that was like, this looks insanely good animation wise, and that's right in between these two. So it makes sense of like Ratatouille's like because there were parts in Ratatouille where I forgot it was an anime. Like it would go to an establishing thing, and I was just like, "Oh wow, this looks so good." I thought it was just like a stylized, like live action thing. Um, and for 2007, it's like there wasn't a lot of things that would be able to do animation that good that can pass is like stylized real in moments. Um, and then, oh, I mean, obviously, like they do their characters super caricaturized, but the way that they do it in all the Pixar movies, the way that they do humans and stuff, I feel like it just ages so well because it's not anything that is too real, but it's also not anything that's too
Yeah,
silly
it's
or
like a
too.
caricature. It's like a real caricature style. Is how like there's something that does come across as real because even
Mhm.
in the new ones, it's the same way. But it's obviously like over everything's really exaggerated and stylized. Not all the characters. Up is definitely less realistic looking than
Yeah,
this one.
that was
Um,
weird looking at times.
but um, but yeah, I think there's not that you're right that the art style does age well, and they've kind of been staying in it for a while,
Mhm.
um, until the wheels fall off, I guess. I
Star
don't.
Star Wars forever.
Yeah, that's pretty Marvel forever, Star Wars forever, Pixar forever. The Disney, thousand years of Disney.
Yeah, I'm surprised though with the Pixar's output has like really jumped up over the last like 5 years or so, and it's crazy at what they're able to pump out and still be like having like good hits.
It was some of the like I think they finally got a flop with like Lightyear and like that was supposed to be a big movie and it did not do well at the box office for how big it was. Um, but yeah, I think that they're just gonna they realize that it's one of the easiest cash grabs for them that everybody watches them and they get awards and they and whatnot. Like they cast really wide nets, and then children obviously they're the ones that drive people to watch shit the most. You know, like they're
Mhm.
the ones that watch Frozen 1,000 times in a row. And we did it when we were kids too, with whatever goofy movie. Or,
Oh man,
um,
that's such a good movie. So good.
so um, I don't know if we want to get into it with specifics about the plot. I think it's a very like typical like a story. Just like there are the turns in it. That's what I think. That's what makes the movie good at the same because it's executed so well, but at the same time it like it's just like it's a movie that I've seen almost before. Um, like there's something about it that seems so familiar to me, other than the outlandish premise of a rat controlling a man to cook by his hair.
Yeah, I get that too, and I can't put my finger on what it reminds me of. Um, because it's like has these elements of like you think it's going fish out of water, but then it becomes more about like acceptance and like not like gatekeeping like certain things.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Just like let people, because Remy's like, I'm still a rat, but I'm a chef and I like to do this,
mm,
and this is like who I am, but that's okay. Like it's all about like, yeah, accepting what people want to do and their callings, and letting people follow their dreams, and
mhm.
um, a lot of basic kind of stuff.
But it works well with this, especially when you have like you were talking earlier, and I wanted to piggyback on about how it's a split story, but it's not really about Alfredo. It's just like Remy is our lead, and Alfredo just happens to be a vehicle to get what Remy wants to do, which is just
Yeah,
become a
yeah.
chef. Um, and I love that because it just kind of subverts the expectations. Like I love that instead of it being this, I thought it was going to be the scenario of where it's like somebody catches him using the rat, and then it's his fall from grace or whatever, and then the whatever. But I like that he just like immediately goes on the defense, defends Remy. And this is what it is, and if you guys aren't fucking with this, then fuck you. And and that's what leads to the whole rat kitchen at the end, which was just so absurd, but it was so
Yeah, that is when
awesome
the
at the
movie
same
gets
time.
ridiculous, and it's like, how could this ever happen and stay open, and then they kind of address it,
Yeah, and like I
with the
like
health department coming, and
yeah, they just tie him up, lock him in the fucking food pantry. But I love that it has that touch at the because of all the rats coming to help Remy. It has that like family thing where because that's another like theme of the movie is just like is family more important than your own goals and dreams? And I feel like it answers it as it can be, but it should be more of a support system rather than a choose which one.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. That I think that is definitely the takeaway here. Like, you don't have to abandon your family, but
mhm.
your family should be supporting you in your dreams. I think yeah, there's definitely a lesson to be learned there with regards to our own lives.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like they may not understand what you do or why you're doing it, but at the end of the day, if you're struggling and you need help, then like they're gonna be there for you. Which I really just loved. I thought it was very sweet. I like when there's like a face turn on like a family thing like that. Because if it's just from our own experience with stuff. I mean, dad still doesn't understand what I do for a living. Uh but yeah, it's just nice. It's a nice like hit home, feel good moment.
yeah, that I agree. I agree. I mean, is there anything in particular that you want to touch upon with Ratatouille? The soundtrack is fantastic. I feel
Mm.
like I've heard people like play some of these songs before. Um, I don't know if anything regarding that.
It didn't stand out to me. It is good, but it didn't stand out to me nearly as much as Up. Up has that jingle that is just seared into your brain. Um,
I don't. I
but
think
yeah,
all the French. There's like a lot of like that French inspired music,
yeah,
like the accordion and stuff. I don't know. Like It's very like vibrant. Ups for some reason didn't really stand out to me a whole lot, but I feel like I know the jingle you're talking about.
Yeah, it's
Um,
but yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's like if you didn't notice the score, that means they did a great job. Um, and because it's like it's not taking away from anything, it's not trying to
just
steal
setting
any
this
show,
it's a
but it's
scene.
it's perfect atmosphere setting for this. Like everything
Yeah,
felt right the way that this was done,
yeah. It's very
between the
warm.
music and it. Yeah, yeah, it's very warm. It's very
The film feels warm. Like all the candlelight look, like
mhm.
everything's kind of orange and gold. Like all the lighting is like yellow light. Like not the actual lighting, but you know the
Yeah.
like the lamps and the chandeliers and the
Mhm.
it's all a lot of yellows and it's very warm.
I don't know what time this movie is set in.
It
It's
seems
kind
to
of
be
hard to
modern.
tell.
It seems to be modern.
It's I thought it was older because everyone had black and white TVs, but then there's
Oh, that's
moments that make
right.
it feel
Yeah.
modern. So, like, I couldn't tell because if it is takes place older, that would make sense if everything's candlelit and tungsten, because they wouldn't have had fluorescence yet. Um, but yeah, it feels like
It's
the
like a
whole
timeless.
homey vibe.
It's kind of like a timeless feel. That's kind of the vibe I get. Is it
Mhm.
could be any time, but it feels very timeless.
I love that uh, what is her name? Paulette falls in love with Remy, or not Remy, falls in love with Alfredo, which also the names in this movie are just hilarious. Um, but uh, but it's all over the fact that she thinks he's this wizard cook and everything, and then it just but it is cool that she like still stays
Yeah, the
at the
relationship is a little bit
real.
toxic. I was thinking about when she's gonna pepper spray him, and then the Remy makes him kiss her. I'm like, man, that
Yeah,
would just not be cool. They would probably not do that in today's movie.
that she would have pulled the pepper spray in today's world because
She would
that's a
have.
little too forward.
Oh yeah, she would have just sprayed his ass.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%.
um, but I mean, like other than that, there's nothing. It's just it's 2007. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I got nothing really else to say about it. It's just a good movie. Um,
Mhm.
I don't really
It's very
know.
sweet.
I don't really know. You know, I wasn't. I'm not. I don't know. Like, not blown away is the right word. I just think it was a good, sweet, movie. I liked it a
Yeah,
lot.
I agree with that. I feel like it does nothing that makes me go like this is an all-star movie or
This is
whatever, but
changes my life.
yeah, but everything about it is just so like enjoyable. Like I could easily watch this again and just enjoy it just as much as I
Yeah,
did the
exactly.
first
Or
time.
like I could see like when I have a family like watching this with
Mhm.
them and like and it's being very enjoyable.
The part at the towards the end where the food critic, what is his name? Something Appetite,
Anton Ego.
oh, Anton Ego, that's it. He when he eats the ratatouille and it immediately transports him back to his child
Yeah.
self. Oh my God, does that hit so well though? Because we've all, I, especially recently, I keep having this. I've been on the member berries train super hard, but I keep having smells and that just transport me back like 20 years, and it's just it's insane that how much like food or smells or whatever can just trigger these like such vivid moments in time. Um, and I just got I that was like a real big emotional hit for me during that part because it's just like I know that feeling. I know exactly what that is like, and it can change your entire perspective on something once you have that like memory associated with it. Um, and it was just done so well.
Are you ready to score it?
Yeah, I'm ready to score. I
I
would.
You can start.
Sorry, go.
You can
I was
start.
gonna say I would give this a 4. I think this is super duper solid. There's not a lot to not like, but there's not enough, I would say, to make it stand out to give it a 5. But it is just a great movie to just put on and enjoy at any point with anyone. Uh, it's yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like I'm pressured to give it more than a 5 or more than a 4 because like just looking at a lot of the reviewers I follow, it's like it's 5, 5, 4, 5, 4.5, 5, 4, 5. The 1 4 was Roger Ebert who only scores out of 4, so that's a 4 out of
Oh
4.
wow.
um,
Jeez.
so like everybody thinks it's a perfect movie, and it pretty much is. I just feel like
Yeah.
I reserve fives for like movies that blow me away or just like I'm
Same.
wowed, and I wasn't really wowed in this movie, and like maybe it's a product of waiting too long to see it for the first
Hmm.
time, or whatever, but um. I'm also leaning to a four. I feel like I'm pressured to give 4.5, but I think that I'm gonna stay at a four. This is an excellent
Hmm.
movie, and just probably one of the best family movies that you could sit down and with your children and watch. But yeah, I think it stays at a four for me.
Yeah, I think that's fine there. I don't think like I mean we'll get into it when we get into Up, but I think that I think that this is not the best Disney movie or Pixar movie I've seen, but it is damn close and it's really good. But it just doesn't have that like that that big for me at least to give a five. I have that big emotional connection, and it just kind of changes the way I like look at something. Um,
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna talk about Up because I feel like I've been giving little spoils that I liked it, but yeah, let's just move on. Let's just move on. For some reason, I forgot to switch over the pictures, but I'll do that. And so, Up, it has a reputation of being, um, it wrecks. If you're an adult, you're gonna cry when you see this, or it's gonna wreck you. Um, and it's like it's got something for adults and it's got something for kids, and it's very philosophical and it's heavy, but it's fun, and I think all that stuff is accurate. Um, and is I liked it a lot, but I particularly like the first probably third of the movie, maybe half of the movie. It opens with this just like gut wrenching like sequence of this guy's life and this couple's life, really. They meet as kids, they get, eventually they get married, high school sweethearts or whatever, and then, they grow old together, they're unable to have kids, and you kind of can see, you realize that this man that's becoming old is the man from, like, I knew him as the man on the, that's the Up guy, the old guy from Up. So I knew that there was no old lady from Up. So I kind of started to put together that his wife was going to pass away, and you just think about that and what that would be like, and but also, man, does that montage just really hit home for me that life is incredibly short, and it's over in a blink of an eye, and like to this movie is very much about making the most of your time and
Mhm.
here on Earth, and but it's also like okay to live life at your own pace. But you might not get to move your house to South America, but that's okay. You lived your life, and it's like letting go of things, and letting go of
Mhm.
the past, and embracing the present and in the future, and just like with optimism, and it's never too late to make friends. And there's all these really good themes in the movie. But yeah, it really, really just wrecked me. It just bawled my eyes out during the whole
Mhm.
thing. Once I realized what it was going for, I just already just living in it. It was honestly, I figured it out by the time they couldn't have kids, and I was just kind of
Mhm.
bawling from that point on. Um, but then I will say, from like such a great setup, and like also this guy, he's like afraid of change. He doesn't. He's got this small patch of grass in his house, and like it's being developed all around him. Honestly, reminded me of Ghost Story. If you've seen that, I believe we
Mhm.
did. With how like the time passing and just eventually you're the area that you were from and you're stuck there for like in hundreds of years past or whatever, like it all gets developed and changes. And I think about, as you grow up, like the streets that you like from your neighborhood, like all the businesses and things that used to be there, and when you were a kid, your dad and your grandpa Pap used to tell you that these things used to be there, and but now the things
Mhm.
that were there when you were a kid are gone, and it's like just this the way it is. Like buildings, build, grow and die, just like people almost. And when you look at time in a time lapse, it's wild to watch and see. Um, and but it kind of can feel like the world is like changing all around you, and it doesn't
Mhm.
have any use for you anymore. Just like a lot of those kinds of feelings, and it's stuff that I'm definitely think about, and I have definitely a fear of feeling like my life is flying by, and just feeling like I'm running out of time, and just afraid of afraid of death and those kinds of things. I think this
Mhm.
movie definitely confronts some of that, at least sets up with that, and then you're kind of on this adventure to fulfill this last wish of this man, and then you obviously get the Boy Scout boy who's there to help, and he's kind of our youthful representation of like whimsy and fun and adventure, and it just like they kind of counterbalance each other.
Mhm.
Um, that whole setup is fantastic and great. Also, the balloons and the colors of the balloons and how the
Mhm.
light shines through them, and it turns into this like psychedelic swirl, and like all that is so fucking cool. So cool. So cool. But my issue with the movie is the second half. I feel like the movie is paced kind of strange, and which it doesn't, like, the pacing itself isn't what my issue is, but it like structured strange, and I think I expected it to take longer to get to South America, and then once we got there, I'm not sure I was really into the story with like the old adventure man and the dog and the Isle of Dogs, um, as much as like
Mhm.
the bigger concepts and the premise and the like the journey. I thought it was gonna be more of like a road movie than it was like Isle of Dogs for the half of it.
Yeah.
Um,
The
so I think the second half is significantly weaker than the first. I'll
I
pass it
think
back to you. I've been going for a while.
yeah, I will get to where you left off, but I'm just gonna say
Yeah, start
real
from the beginning,
yeah,
please,
briefly.
for you.
This is probably the sixth time I've seen this movie, and
Okay.
I cried just as hard as every other time I've seen
Oh
it.
wow.
Oh man, it just hits so well, and when you have this, like, time gap of, like you probably haven't seen this in about 5 years, so it's like every time you watch it, when there's a few years gap, it becomes even more relatable because 'cause you're older and there are
Mm,
even in 5 years, so much changes, whether it be in your life and, like, directly or around it,
the world around
and,
you, yeah.
yeah, and that whole intro I forgot when I was rewatching this about the whole kids setup in the beginning, which just adds so much more. Like, because you always think the montage part whenever you think back to the movie, but the having that setup with how they meet as kids, and then they just that was it. They're bonded from there. Um, oh man, does it crush you the entire time? And then by the time you get to the housing development thing, the resistance to change, obviously we all have that. Everybody, change is probably one of the hardest things I feel like for people.
Especially the older
Um,
you get.
yeah, the more removed you are from everything, the less familiar, the less reliant you are to the modern world. It's all scary and it's all different, and it's just such a good setup. And then the whole thing, I will agree, like they just kind of end up in South America pretty quickly. And I forgot how quickly that was. Um, but I will say with the Isle of Dogs thing, I mean, I do like how they set up the adventurer thing, and I feel like that's a nice full circle because that
Yeah, they
was both
do.
him and Ellie's hero, and
Yeah.
it's like a wow because he has the house with him when he meets him, so it's like, and that's his representation of Ellie is equivalent of him, carrying her ashes around.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and, so I did like all that, but then it just became like I agree though that it was just kinda too much dogs, like the dogs and the snipe thing just kinda became too much of a it's like they needed a conflict when they got there as if, having a house being lifted up by balloons wasn't enough of a conflict. Um, but
Yeah, I do agree they needed something else. It's just I
Mhm,
think it dominated too much of the movie. I
Yeah,
was more
I
interested in the journey, and like I feel like they could have
mhm.
stretched the journey out more and shortened the dog stuff, and it would have been fine.
Yeah, the relationship between Russell and Carl is definitely the way more interesting than any other part, within the second half with the dogs and stuff,
I like
because it's
Doug.
very
Don't get me wrong. I like Doug.
yo, he's adorable.
I think he's like it's like an interesting thing. It's just like so many dog jokes, so many, and like I'm not a dog owner, so like, maybe
Mhm,
that hits different for people that love dogs, but it just like became all about dogs. I mean, like obviously about the old explorer man trying to find the bird, but it was like a second. It was like the second plot that I kind of
mhm,
underestimated how, and I was like, oh, it's not going to take everything over. It's not going to take everything over. Oh no, it's taking everything over, and that's like fine. Like it's you got to have something else. I just maybe didn't like how like the division between the
mhm,
two. And like, I think that like that story I think is more the children's story, the story that is more
yeah,
interesting to the kids because it's more like a basic kind of premise that you could see in other children's films, but it
mhm,
has like it's coupled with this heavy, very very big existential like philosophical stuff.
mhm,
And you kind of thinking about all that, and I think I was like still thinking about all that, and I'm just like it's hard for me to fully disengage from that and just turn my brain off for a little while. I also wanted to point it out that we got to do the cast. Ed Asner plays the old man, Carl, right?
mhm.
And
Carl Fredricksen.
he's excellent. He's got a very iconic voice. He's voice acted for years. He's a comedy actor he's like, around forever. It feels like he passed away just last year. Honestly, a year ago tomorrow, that he
Oh,
passed
wow.
away. I remember that Riss, my partner, watches Grace and Frankie on Netflix. Has a bunch of older actors in it, and he had like a small part on it. And I remember being like, "Damn, he's really really old." And that was about it for for him. Also, the actor who plays the bad guy, Charles Muntz, is Christopher Plummer, who is also a very 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 prolific actor. And you would probably, a modern audiences would know him best as the old, like the patriarch in Knives Out, who dies in the beginning.
Yes,
And he's an excellent actor as well.
I forgot
Yeah,
he was
so it's
in
just
that.
like top class. Ed Asner's voice is just so iconic, and it just very much sounds like a an old man.
Mhm.
Um, he
I mean,
it,
he is one.
Yeah, who he sound also like the what's that show? I don't remember. But it's an animated show. I feel like I've heard him do some voices in. It's on the tip of my tongue, but yeah, he's great. The boy I saw it was is just a child actor that hasn't done a lot since. And then Doug is also somebody that isn't really anybody really either. Um, I think that was interesting that versus. Um, versus Ratatouille, there's significantly smaller cast because it's like a
Mhm.
smaller story, but even like the voice acting seems like it probably was pretty cheap.
It is, but because like, I guess because it's all relying upon the main like the three main people being like Russell, Carl, and Christopher Plummer's character, which I keep forgetting his name.
Charles
Was it
Muntz.
Charles Muntz? That's it. Um, I yeah, I thought they all did fantastic. I thought
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
it fit everything with this. What I was gonna say earlier was I feel like when it got to the Charles Muntz stuff, when it's like old man, when Carl and them and meet him, I was really hoping that it would go more into that like this is our like they have a moment of the meeting our hero, like him and Ellie's hero, but I wish it would have dove into just, like, the whole memories thing a little bit more and gone back into the because this dude was, like, an adult when they were kids, and he's still alive, and and, like, they do, like, the little walk down his trophy room, essentially, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have the same impact as if they were, like having like if he was having all these memory moments of him and Ellie remembering specific things of Charles Muntz that they used to recreate or do or something.
I
Uh,
thought that the I know that they set up the Charles Months with that little thing in the beginning, but I honestly forgot all about him. So when he came back, it like took me a second. Um,
gotcha.
but so like then I was like, oh yeah, that this is the guy. But I just like didn't care about him, and it's just like this weird coincidence, you know.
I think it's
Um,
because the movie's so short. His heel turn is just way too quick. Um, I feel like that as well is what kind of makes maybe like the pacing or just the feel of the second half a little off because it's pretty much just like he shows up, immediate bad guy, um, rather than like having at least toy with it or giving you the impression of just like maybe there's a reason, maybe you could see it both ways where like you could see it from his perspective of not being a bad guy or whatever, but they just
yeah,
kind of go straight. This is the villain right from the jump when you see him with his army of dogs. Um, which, yeah, like you were saying before, like that definitely fits the kid moment. You probably need to have more kid plot elements like that in there when you have so many like adult themes going through the whole thing, that are, I would say, probably unrelatable to most children. Like Russell and Doug are like the relatable things for the children, whereas all the parents are just relating to Carl. Um, but it still works. Like I think because the movie's only an hour and a half long, I it went surprisingly quick. That whole sequence with the dogs and stuff went surprisingly quicker than I remembered it being. Um, and then whenever, like by the time you get to the end, and it kind of comes full circle back to uh, Carl's thing of just kind of like acceptance of just change in the future and whatever. And I love the whole concept of just like just because you're old and everyone around you has passed doesn't mean you still like doesn't mean you have to just be alone and wait to die. Um,
yeah.
which is
I think I didn't. I agree that that is the message of the ending, and like letting go of the past.
Mhm,
And I think it is a positive message, but I found it just a little unsatisfying, which is how like big and epic, like how like big and just foreboding and heavy that the beginning felt. Like it felt like
mhm,
his issue wasn't just like he's what to do with the rest of his time. It's just like
mhm.
his time is running out and everything has changed and everything is gone, and it's just like how do you cope? And I guess it just like don't deal with don't dwell on it really. Just make new memories with new people people and be positive, and you'll have a
Yeah.
positive effect on your environment. And yeah, I don't know. I think maybe because I've been kind of struggling with some existential things lately, and I found it unsatisfying for how much it triggered me, for how much it like um, really put me through some emotional shit in the beginning.
Mhm.
But it wasn't like bad, or it wasn't like anything was empty. It was definitely things of value in that. Um, I think that it's hard to give answers to unanswerable questions, and
Yeah.
especially in a children's film. I just like God damn you for opening it all up and not able to fully fix it.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just like, "Here's your problem, now figure out your shit."
yeah, pretty much. And well, just like it does give you some answer, but there's no
Mhm.
true solace
Yeah,
for entering the other side. Um,
when it hits the like, the end I feel like its ending message, before the like, Russell's thing, it's whenever he's going through the adventure book, for the last time and seeing, like, things I wanna do, and then he's, like apparently he's never turned that page past there, and then
Oh
sees that she's
yeah,
just been keeping
yeah.
track of all of their time
Yeah, like
together.
he didn't need to do that because they've made adventures together. Like their
Yeah.
life is an adventure,
Mhm.
and it's got ups and downs and heartbreak and setbacks, but also um, great moments and moments of triumph and positivity, and that is the nature of life, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, I cried during that part. I cried during the ending with Russell, like, and his dad not being there, but Carl is there. and it's just the mom and Doug.
Yeah.
The tears just kept coming whenever they're
Yeah, I
doing
cried,
the
I
little
think, during that too.
the curb counting the cars game that Russ used to do with his dad. And that's like another like loose theme of just because Russell is the whole movie is given things about his dad being absent in his life, and he's just like looking for a father figure. And obviously Carl is resistant to it because they never had kids, and he wants to just do his own thing. But this is also his moment to be a dad by the end of it, and it's like it's just like so many like mini themes within the overarching theme, and and I feel like it works very well. It hits all the emotional beats it needs to, and I like that it just like it all. It's a happy ending. So is Ratatouille, but it's another one of those things where just like I'm so happy it just kind of worked out for everybody, except for they killed Charles Muntz in cold blood. Uh, Straight up, they let that man fall to his death from like
I
thousands of
mean,
feet in the
he
air.
was like not letting them leave, and he's ancient, so
I know, but
he's had
I
his time.
forgot that they literally just let this motherfucker fall to his death without a care, and they immediately move on. They don't even feel bad about it. He just killed his childhood hero, and fucking, and it is just not even a thought. Just forget, move on. Which
Interesting.
is funny.
I know I mentioned that Christopher Plummer and Ed Asner passed away since the movie came out, but they both passed away in 2021 at the age of 91. They were the same age.
Wow. I wonder if they were buddies.
Interesting that Christopher Plummer is playing somebody like 15 or at least 10 years older than Carl.
Mhm.
But all right. I think I want to. I think that we gotten through a lot of it. We can start talking about scoring. I don't want to give my score yet, but I think I want to explain how this is how my rationale here. So I think that this movie, I think Ratatouille is as a complete film. Much it is a much more complete film, and is just good, consistently good throughout, and just like there's no issues with it as a movie or story
Mhm.
or anything. Up, but it doesn't blow me away. It doesn't feel like it hits on a deeper level. But for what it's trying to do, it hits it perfectly. This movie, I think, does hit me on a deeper level. Does blow me away in moments. I have this extreme visceral emotional reaction to this film. But at the same time, I do think that the film is not perfect. I think that there is issues. They're not big or anything. It's still a good movie. But there is just deficiencies that Ratatouille does not have. So I think with that I would probably also give this a 4.
Interesting. Interesting. I thought about it long and heavy, and I agree with you on a lot of those points. But I think for me, because the runtime being so short, the parts that kind of aren't as good as the rest happen so quickly. Um,
It's
and just
like
like
I
knowing
think
that
the
it's like a
runtime wise, it's like more of the film though. Like the stuff in South America is like more of the film than the beginning of the movie.
I like all the stuff in South America, just except for when it becomes too many dogs for a little bit. And the too many dogs thing is only
That's like
like 15, 20 minutes.
I disagree. The dogs is like once the dogs are introduced, they like never go away, and it's like the last hour. It's like the last 45 minutes. Like the army
Ah,
of dogs, and like they just keep doing more dog stuff. As soon as it's months, it's all dogs, and it's months for a while. Like they meet
yeah,
the
but it's
dogs right as soon as they get there, and then it's like 20 minutes later they meet months, and then from there it's just dogs till the end of the movie.
I don't know, I guess it felt like it went quicker with it because like a lot of the dog stuff is like at first it's just cutting away to them and then coming back to what's
I
going
didn't mind
on,
them at
and then
first, and then this it was like more and more and more and more about dogs. It's just like increasingly about the dogs
yeah, like
and
that's
less
just like
about anything else in the movie.
yeah, it like shifts the levity over from Russ being like our comedy point to the dogs
To
being the
Doug,
comedy point.
yeah,
Like
and the
Doug and
dogs, yeah.
yeah, the alpha
Or
with
just like
the
the
broken collar.
ridiculous dogs flying the planes.
I thought that
Uh,
was silly. I
I
like
it
that.
was silly, but I didn't like it. But I didn't like hate it. But it was
Mm.
just like this is They're just leaning into the dogs doing ridiculous things. Um,
Uh, yeah, I didn't mind that. I felt like it just like worked within the ridiculousness of the world. But I was gonna say I'm leaning more towards a 4.5 just because of like while Ratatouille I think is like you said, it's a perfectly complete film with no real gripes. I think that the themes that Up tackles and how it goes about doing it, and then also keep doing it in such a having such an emotional impact in such a short runtime, I feel grants it a bigger like overall score and just like impact on me as a viewer. Um, so I'm just leaning towards 4.5. I feel like I think it's just because of that and because it can punch and I've watched this multiple times and it still hits every single time the exact same way. Um, I think that's for me enough to give it a 4.5.
so this movie is reviewed very similarly on Letterboxd, at least, to Ratatouille. Just going through the people that I follow, I see 3.5, 5, 3.5, 4, 5, 4, 4 by Roger Ebert, which is a 5, 5, 3.5, 4.5. I mean, there's more fives and more 3.5s, and I think it just ends up being about the same. Um, and I can see why people do think that these are two of the best. But I personally, my theory, which I kind of opened with, is that maybe there's the nostalgia weight from younger millennials and Gen
Mhm.
Z that I didn't have because I was already old. I was thought I was old at least by the
Mhm.
time these movies came out. Um, so yeah, I don't know. This may be a topic that we revisit, later in the future, when we think about modern animated films. But these are two good ones, certainly are, and I liked them. So
Agreed. Honestly, I'd be down to keep doing. There's so many Pixar movies I haven't seen, and I'd be definitely down to plow through these over the years.
yeah, we definitely got to break it up. And I don't want we're not going to I'm just going to tell you right now. We are not going to plow through all of Pixar movies or a bunch of them. It's just excellent selections. That's what we're all about here. Um,
But even in
so
my free time, I'm just gonna try to
yeah,
watch
you can
one
do
of these.
that. We've been watching the newer ones, like I said, like Soul and stuff, and Moana, and I think we want to
Eh,
watch Luca
I've seen
and
the first
Coco.
30 minutes of Luca, and I've seen the first 30 minutes of Turning Red, and I've seen nothing else of the new stuff. I'm very behind, but
Um,
I gotta catch up.
so the one thing I want to see is I don't know if you saw this trailer when I want to see that Fire of Love documentary about the scientist couple that like was obsessed with hanging out around
Oh yeah, I saw the trailer for that.
volcanoes. Yeah, I think I saw it when I saw the trailer when we went to see Crimes of the Future, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, that was it.
It
Man, yeah, that
just
movie
came
looked
out,
nuts.
and I really want to see it. So I might be trying to do that. But as far as what we're gonna do for the next episode, I don't think we have anything lined up. Um, we can figure that out though. I wanted to do anime. I want to do anime soon, but I feel like we should not do anime right after other animated.
Yeah,
So,
I'd be down. I just watched the rebuilds, and I'm all about it right now. Anime right now.
well, we'll do it soon. But like I said, I don't think it makes sense to do it back to back. Um, I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. We got to really remember to talk about it before we start, and then that way we can intro it to the next one. But we will figure that out, and we will let y'all know, and we will be back next time in 2 weeks. Um, and that's that. Do you have anything you want to say to the kids out there?
No, just fucking change is a natural thing, and
You do
and
Morbius.
also, oh, it's Morbin time.
Is it Morbin
Uh,
time?
it could be Morbin time, but yeah, don't be afraid to change, and also don't stop people from doing what they want to do, even if you think it's gonna ruin what you're doing.
Oh, you're right. Um, and then make sure also what you should do is follow us on at Best Boys Film Pod on all the things. You can make sure you like, subscribe. We are on YouTube. Make sure you leave reviews, those that are on the Apple things. Do whatever you can. Interact with the podcast. It really helps us out. I will make a point as if we do get reviews that I will read them aloud at the end of the episodes. So that is
Exciting.
something that we can do. But that does it for us this week. We will be back and we will be smacking. Y'all have a good night.
See everybody. I got to go to work.
Bye.
Peace.